Hello, today I want to show you and to tell about pretty fun and unusual model. Creator name is Geek Wold and model name GK10. Some time ago I reviewed their model GK3 and it was a super affordable model with 3 dynamic drivers. And actually this company continued to employ pretty sophisticated designs in terms of drivers. Here inside of these earpieces we getting 2 dynamic drivers, one for low frequencies and one for mids. Also balanced armature for treble and 2 piezo drivers for the ultra high treble. Pretty interesting, but keeping in mind that the price is just about $50, it became even more interesting. Actually, they are not new, they were released some time ago, but I didn't manage to get them for review right after the release. But then a friend of mine reminded me that it's kind of interesting model and I decided to take a closer look. As you can see, package is pretty fun and unusual. No fancy box, just white cardboard and plastic cover for it. On the back side you can see the driver configuration, impedance less or equal to 6 ohms, so pretty high to drive, and 106 decibels of sensitivity, so it's not a regular model in terms of sensitivity. And inside we are getting earpieces themselves, 3 pair of tips here, 2 pairs here. So let's move them. Stock cable and the storage pouch. So not super fancy accessory set, but noticeably better than, for example, offered by KZ. And actually here is the 3rd pair of this set. In terms of design, model is kinda nice. They are unusual, made of plastic, but with probably it's wooden faceplate. It looks like stabilized wood, or maybe it's some imitation, but most probably it's stabilized wood under some cover. They have interesting heart-like shape. Actually, one of Eurovision Song Contest has this shape as a logo. And in general it's pretty smooth and fitting nicely into ears, so wearing comfort is good, but probably this part can be annoying for some persons. But for me actually they fitting nicely into ears this way, and I found wearing comfort is nice. Spouts have average length, so sound isolation is also about the average level. It will be enough for public transport or noisy street, so in this aspect it's okay. And here is a lip for holding the tips and protective grill, so that all parts that I care about are present here. Of course it's not some seamless design, you can see seams here, but in general I think for this price tire build quality is okay. And here is stock cable, actually pretty nice one. Not stellar, not something stellar, but really comfortable and looks nice, matching the design. So here used 2-pin connectors, fitting pretty tightly. Here they are. So ear hooks are formed here, and cable is softer than average. 4 wires per each ear, but still pretty soft, almost not getting hard when it's cold outside. And the microphonic effect is low, and it's almost absolutely surpassed by the ear hooks. Nice braiding, attractive look. Here is a splitter with a chin slider, and 8 cables braiding go down to the straight jack. So as you can see, for $50 of price, I think pretty good exterior and decent accessories set. And of course about the sound. What is fun is that this model received totally mixed reviews. Some people praise them, others hate them, and actually in my opinion it's just a normal model. It's not some giant killer, but at the same time they are not bad. Or more precise to say, it's taste based, of course, but it's the same for all models in this segment, and are they good or bad depends on your taste totally, because they have some really strong parts and they have some parts that are just okay for this price. But let's talk about everything step by step. I gave them about 48 hours of burn-in, and there were some changes during first 4 or 5 hours. Treble became slightly more balanced. And of course it's important to find the proper tips. I will still use FIO M11 Plus to show some examples. So, low frequencies are normal. They have nice depths, but they have accent on the mid and upper bass. So deeper layers of bass are present, but depth is just slightly above average, not the maximum one. And also deeper layers of bass are slightly hidden behind the mid bass and upper bass, but still pretty pleasant, well balanced, okay in terms of resolution or average in terms of resolution, but definitely not bad. Pretty nice in representing textures, but of course lacking a bit of that small nuances and overtones. But what I like here about low frequencies is that this model bases nicely between the speed and weight. They not sound overbloated, but and at the same time not sound like super dry. Maybe if I'd go a bit nitpicking, of course I'd prefer a bit more weight, but it's still pretty acceptable, at least for me, keeping in mind the price, of course. And the first example, it's King of Loss by Pain of Salvation acoustic version. They have a nice pleasant bass. Of course, to fully play this track at 100% they are lacking a bit of small nuances, but still low frequencies are played with a good quantity and normal quality. It's pretty universal and fits nicely for some acoustic instruments, but lacking of course a bit of realism, and pretty good for electronic music. But of course for maybe if vast majority of your library is electronic music or some genres depending on the meaty and big bass, you can probably prefer something more bass heavy. Mid frequencies are also driven by the dynamic driver, but the second one, and the overlap at the lower mids is slightly noticeable, but only if you know what to hear. There is a slight place where they lacking a bit of definition. And in general it's just a normal dynamic drivers with okay resolution, proper weight distribution, and slightly boosting emotions in the representation. It's not balanced armatures in terms of definition, and actually, in my opinion, I think it would be nicer to have here a second balanced armature instead of dynamic driver. But maybe it was a Geek Wold's idea not to make them over-focused on the micro detalization. Imaginary stage is above average, not super huge, but pretty well defined and has appropriate size. They are not critical for the quality of records. Of course, better recorded material will be a plus, but at the same time they won't go into nitpicking too much. And actually the track that I want to use as example here, it's Sting Russian's live version. It's an interesting version with nice orchestration, recorded live, and actually this model plays it normally. I can't say great or really good, but normally. Of course, to play it at full potential we'll need something more expensive, but it's pretty audible without big issues. And the strong part here is actually treble. I like it. Of course it's focused, so if you're sensitive to the treble, probably it's not your cup of tea, and but if you like treble, it's pretty nice. Really good balance of attacks and decays, resolution, quantity and quality. and also really good extension, giving really nice overtone saturation. They even tries to show some traces of layering, not great, but at least they're trying, and it's really surprising for the $50 price tire. So in terms of treble, they are fun. Of course, also don't expect like super expensive earphones performance, but in my opinion, in terms of treble performance, if you're not sensitive, it's one of the best options in this price range. And as an example for the treble, I've got Threshold Phenomenon. Really good band, not super popular, but I think they deserve more popularity. Of course, they are not unknown, definitely. It's a great band for those who like not super brutal metal. They have some progressive influence, they have some thrash influence, but the most important part of their songs, it's a great catchy tunes and riffs, and this one is not an exception. They have a lot of percussions that this model plays pretty nicely. In terms of pairing, they definitely not created for the regular smartphones. They require some digital to analog converter, and they require a bit more than average power. I need to elaborate more here because in one of my previous reviews someone said that more power is not required, but by more power I don't mean like 200 milliwatts, 500 milliwatts or something like that. I'm meaning about 50 or so, maybe slightly more, but not more than that. So more power than smartphones can provide, but of course not more power in terms of dedicated digital to analog converters. And actually, I won't probably this time go into comparisons because basic idea I think is pretty simple. In terms of mids and lows, it's just a normal dynamic driver model of this price tire, but at the same time they offer great treble performance. Also, of course, for this price. They have some drawbacks like lack of coherence in some particular places, but still pretty fun and enjoyable, of course, if you like high frequencies. So, I won't recommend buy them blindly, but I definitely recommend you to try them because it's an interesting model that worth your attention. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.